As the Money Burns is an original podcast by Nikki Woodard. Based on historical research, this is a deep exploration into what happened to a set of actual heirs and heiresses to some of America's most famous fortunes when the Great Depression hits. Each episode has 3 primary sections. Section 1 is a narrative story. Section 2 goes deeper into the historical facts. Section 3 focuses on contemporary, emotional, and personal connections. Story recap. Jakey Astor is ranked Newport's most eligible bachelor. Jimmy Cromwell shocks GOP ladies, and Princes Sergei and David Divani stir up more trouble. Now back to As the Money Burns. Cursed hopes. As tough times persist, several dangers lie ahead for dreams, fortunes, and more importantly, life itself. Section 1. Story. Oh, the dream is always to fall in love and be rich, to be swept up in kisses and dripping in jewels and cash. Nothing could be an easier way to solve certain problems. Or is it? Funny how dreams rarely take in the dark side of things. While hope glimmers on the horizon for those seeking love, others struggle with more dire circumstances. Failed and failing marriages are one thing, but the ongoing financial problems from the Great Depression bring more problems into the mix. The rise in particular crimes like kidnapping for ransom continues to plague and concern even the moderately well-to-do. There's nothing like situations like the Great Depression to drive people to ever further the efforts to gain, maintain, or retrieve a fortune. People will do anything. Some try through matters of the heart, while others are a little more dangerous, aggressive, and definitely illegal. Prohibition is still in effect, but it is slowly beginning to unravel. The rise of gangster and other illicit activities have more than caused problems for the public and government. Worse, legitimate businesses suffer from the inability to serve alcohol. Casualties include the original Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and now even dry cruise liners like the Leviathan. Recently, back in March 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt signed a bill allowing beer to be sold again legally, and many hope for more repeals to soon follow. Another presidential order requires that all gold certificates need to be exchanged by May 1st, 1933. A few days before the deadline, a man, J.J. Faulkner, cashes in $2,980. In 2024, that would be $72,000 worth at a bank. Later follow-up showed no one by that name living at the address given, and those aren't just any gold certificates, but a lead in an unsolved case. And not just any crime, but the crime of the century. They are part of the ransom payment for the Lindbergh baby in an exchange between school teacher John F. Condon and Cemetery John. The certificates had not been marked, but the serial numbers were recorded. More will pop up from time to time for well over the next year. A crime somewhat forgotten as people forge ahead in their lives. But the effect lingers still. Other more pressing situations take focus in those struggling to survive. Lost and diminished fortunes mandate new strategies for the new environment. What's old can become new when the circumstances seem right. Opportunities abound for those with keen eyes and a sense of risk-taking. Such ambition is exactly the thing needed to save or rebuild a fortune. Pretty, statuesque blonde and socialite 23-year-old Alice Leon Motes published her first book, No Nice Girl Swears, with a syndicated column related to its release. Born in Mexico and raised in Europe by American parents, and her father is a banker, Alice Leon hails from the elite set, but whose family's own diminished earnings leads to her writing career as a means of survival. Miss Motes also happens to be an ex-girlfriend of James Henry Van Allen, and she was educated in a convent school in Rome, then attended both Brearley and Fermata, the same schools as Doris Duke. Alice Leon's first writing gig was for a fashion magazine, and now she gives modern advice on dating, etiquette, and the changes in the rules. Things like dating without chaperones, speakeasies, smoking, dealing with drunks, and alludes to more intimate matters like necking and sleepovers. As an updated and modernized Emily Post with less prudishness, this social registrate is definitely finding her way into the work world and becoming a literary sensation with several articles for both magazines and newspapers. Meanwhile, the press is having their bit of fun regaling the adventures of the Silver Spoon Blue Blood, former stockbroker and golden boy William May Wright, a.k.a. Bill, as he tries to rebuild their lost fortune by seeking gold in the Rockies. Seriously, he's actually trying to find gold. His wife, coloratura soprano and supreme hostess Cobina Wright, slightly plays along, stating he's becoming quite a prospector, but still needs to perfect the making of sourdough biscuits. An actual pioneer girl herself before she became an opera singer, Cobina now officially hosts events at the new Waldorf Astoria Hotel in Manhattan, but only earns enough for boarding at the hotel and schooling for their daughter, the blonde, curly-headed Lil Cobina Wright Jr. Do the newspapers really need to constantly remind everyone that they lost their money and all their struggles since? At least the press hasn't quite taken to using the term Ponzi scheme, which is a more apropos description to Bill's former stock brokerage demise. But if the press is only reporting on his financial exploits, that is so much better than his extramarital affairs. Every now and then, Cobina receives another letter from someone pointing out another indiscretion of Bill's. He is currently living with a woman in New Mexico. Cobina isn't the only one dealing with public humiliation. Wealthy socialite and heiress to gold mining and newspaper fortunes, Evalyn Walsh McLean has been a Washington, D.C. fixture and never unmistakable for boldly wearing the large blue Hope diamond, a gift purchased years ago inside her husband's family's Washington Post headquarters. Evalyn considered the well-known unlucky jewel to be her lucky charm. Somehow, though, it seems to have given her, like its previous owners, a long string of bad luck instead. Newspapers report that Evalyn Walsh McLean is reportedly attempting to sell her infamous jewel to raise cash to buy the Washington Post, which has fallen into bankruptcy while her former husband, Edward McLean, gallivants across Europe with his mistress, Rose Douras, having secured their divorce in Latvia back in December 1932. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any takers willing to risk the cursed gem. Previously, Evalyn pawned her precious Hope diamond to pay off a temporary mortgage loan that she took out to pay a ransom for the Lindbergh baby, only to realize it was a hoax. Thursday, June 1st, 1933, Washington, D.C. As luck would have it, her fraudster, Gaston Means, who swindled Evalyn out of $104,000, today now $2.5 million in 2024, with elaborate attempts to recover the famous baby, finds himself again sentenced to 2 years in the penitentiary for defrauding Evalyn after having already been sentenced to 15 years. However, Evalyn attends to a different matter. This same day, the Washington Post goes up for sale at auction. With her ex-husband recklessly abroad, Evalyn attempts to purchase the newspaper for herself and their sons. During the bids, Evalyn fingers the unlucky blue diamond about her neck. Sitting next to her in the balcony, longtime friend and recently widowed Alice Roosevelt Longfellow offers support. Excitedly, bid after bid increases the amount. Evalyn bows out of the auction at $650,000, or $15.7 million in 2024. 2 days later, the official buyer is announced, Eugene Meyer, for $850,000, today $19.9 million. Meyer had previously offered but had been turned down by Edward for $5 million. Depending on year of offer, possibly $100 to $121 million today. Another bidder is William Randolph Hearst, who wanted to eliminate the rival Washington, D.C. newspaper, and whose mistress, Marion Davies' sister, is Rosemary Rose Douras Davies, as in the previously mentioned Edward's lover. Evalyn still has her father's mining fortune and property, so isn't completely destitute, but definitely heartbroken more for her son's legacy. Other rumors percolate which inspire Cobina to plot a new source of gold to replace her family's lost fortune. General Pershing's favorite ocean liner, Leviathan, is being retired. Originally, the German imperial liner launched as the SS Vaterland, only to be taken over by U.S. forces during World War I. After confirming with Kermit Roosevelt, who works for the line, Cobina thoughts dance with all the possibilities of turning the aging magnificent ship into a floating playground, docked in the New York harbor. Another attempt to revive her Sutton Club expertise at a new venue. She knows exactly how and what each deck and room can be converted and used. Dance floors, nightclubs, a day nursery, pool, playrooms, bachelor lodgings, the list goes on and on. Thankfully, Cobina has kept so many of her friends in contact despite her meager fortune, and her much-needed joviality is always encouraged by willing backers. She immediately reaches out to General Pershing, who puts her in contact with Admiral Cone, and with the assistance of Barney Baruch, Cobina quickly secures the permission to turn the Leviathan into an amusement center. But as anything with such an easy beginning will inevitably hit some snags along the way. She partners with J. Rye Ryland, who ran the Gigolo dance hall at Cobina's recent Society Circus ball. Another banker friend introduces her to a man of influence, New York subway builder Sam Rossoff, who guides her through the elusive Tammany Hall's connections to get access and permits to the appropriate dock. He arranges a meeting where Ryland is stuck outside. Inside a smoke-filled back room, Cobina charms her way through the meeting with several men. They quickly and pleasantly agree to the entertainment venture. But when asked why they prevented Ryland from joining the meeting, they admit they were concerned this meeting might be a ruse to get tickets to the upcoming prize fight at Madison Square Garden. Could it possibly be the Primo Carnera versus Jack Sharkey heavyweight title fight? Teasingly, Cobina says they now owe Mr. Ryland a couple of tickets for inconveniencing him. And lo and behold, they actually comply. Within weeks, Cobina gains access to the 79th dock with Tammany Hall's promise to patronage the new establishment. Then Rossoff takes Cobina to another meeting with some leaders of the underworld at a nightclub. Cobina finds herself next to a little big shot, a nice-looking man of middle age with deep dimples. Mr. Dimples warms to her quickly, and Cobina teases him he can't be a gangster, and that he must find a new line of work, to which he agrees. After their meeting, Rossoff informs Cobina that upcoming Monday, Mr. Dimples will be joining his business partner, Al Capone, by serving a 25-year sentence. Saturday, July 1st, 1933. Evalyn Walsh McLean is seen dining with Alice Roosevelt Longfellow. Yes, she is Kermit's older sister, and they are President Theodore Roosevelt's grown children. Rumors are that Evalyn is considering allowing the Hope Diamond to be exhibited at the Chicago's World Fair for 25 cents a look. That's $6.05 in 2024. Another suggestion is to sell cheap replicas as souvenirs. The ill-fated jewel has gotten plenty of press, reliving its reputation and history as interest peaks again with her recent misfortunes. With the exposition On a Century of Progress, the fair runs from May 27, 1933 to November 12, 1933, with a second round in 1934. In the 1933 booklet, the science theme is devoted to the story of jewelry, a story illustrated with replicas of such fabled gems as the Koh-i-Noor, Hope Diamond, and the Star of India. The multi-level exhibition will also include on the first floor the replica of a diamond mine, including subterranean tunnels and corridors with other features like a shaft. The next level, resembling the blue ground, are thatched shacks of native mine workers and a typical mill setting. Then finally, nearby Amsterdam, where one might see diamond cutters at work. This could be a somewhat interesting and potentially lucrative business proposition, as long as it doesn't bring too much trouble. Speaking of trouble, Friday, July 28, 1933. While Cobina sorts out the legal, business, and financial matters, the decommissioned Leviathan is docked for non-use with 4 sailors aboard to watch over it. Only there is an invasion of 4 monkeys, 2 of which are baboons, who ran away from a nearby freight ship. The monkeys cause havoc as they escape through air shafts and ventilators. But that nuisance is so much more preferred than the alarm that sends armed guards and policemen rushing down from New York and Boston to Newport, Rhode Island. Warnings are issued to several Newport heiresses, including Countess Gladys Vanderbilt Szechenyi, Mrs. Truman Saunders, and Mrs. Goodbye Lowe. A considerable threat has also been made to the tall, no longer awkward heiress, Doris Duke. The richest girl in the world is often described as camera shy for good reason. She has been receiving death threats all her life. But with the Great Depression, the rise in kidnapping for ransom has everyone on edge. Now at her Newport estate, Rough Point, day and night guards armed with machine guns are stationed throughout. While she eats with her socially ambitious mother, Nanaline Duke, or young French governess, Jenny Renaud, guards are present. While Doris sleeps, guards sit out her bedroom door and windows. Even her limousine is outfitted with a button on the floor that if she presses with her foot, will send a flashing red light to the dashboard alerting her chauffeur and another in the back to alert her following bodyguards. Unfortunately, while in Europe earlier this year, one amorous English gentleman got quite a surprise at his failed attempt to kiss her when the limo suddenly stopped, the door flung open, to be surrounded by detectives with guns pointed at him. The youth found more solace walking alone the long dusty road back to his hotel in the Riviera. Many of the seaside locations brace for an uptick in robberies and possibly kidnappings. But the summer activities must go on. As Cobina frenetically tries to pull together her Leviathan plans, she gets an unexpected and irresistible invite to Saratoga for the horse races in August. In much need of rest, Cobina accepts the opportunity to stay at the estate of her friend, Florence Nightingale Graham, married name Mrs. Thomas J. Lewis, otherwise known better as Elizabeth Arden. Of course, the one and only successful cosmetics pioneer. Arden revolutionized the female beauty regime of simple cleansers and basic powders to perfumed whipped concoctions, eyeshadows, lipsticks, nail polish, and creams for muscles, wrinkles, and the like. Arden inspires and advises women on posture, diet, and movements. Arden is a champion horse breeder and racer. Her stables are like her salons, well decorated, and the jockey uniforms are taffeta and silk in blue and crimson colors and made by the very best dressmakers. Referred to as little darlings in baby talk, her horses even get the high fancy treatment of nicer scented Arden liniment ointments for their joints. Arden invites Cobina and little Cobina to see the upcoming races along with Prince Kadar. Other race participants include widowed Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney and her sullen, morose nephew and eligible bachelor, Alfred Gwynne Vanderbilt Jr. Only Cobina's endless efforts to rebuild her lost fortune have come at a heavy price. Despite the excitement over her Leviathan project, Cobina notices a loss in the animation of her face, when occasionally glimpsing in a mirror. Monday, August 7, 1933. Cobina is rushed to Roosevelt Hospital and undergoes a serious operation which will take some time to recover. All the while, her mind dances with all the options for the Leviathan. The press, too, encourages her dreams and report about the possibilities of this new venture excited by Cobina and the Leviathan's stormy careers and overlapping histories. Alas, the recovery is much harder and takes far longer than anticipated. Arden takes little Cobina to her Maine Chance Farm while Cobina struggles to heal. Her extreme exhaustion from trying to survive and thrive have taken a toll, along with another heartbreak and hidden stress. Bill never comes at all, not during nor after the surgery, nor throughout the long recovery. A detail, thankfully, the press does not note, to further humiliation. By the time Cobina leaves the hospital, Tammany Hall has a new crew in charge, and with it, all her connections and the Leviathan project vanish. Even now, in double the debt due to the operation, Cobina won't give up, but definitely has to find another new direction. She plasters on her cheerful mask as she plots her next moves. She has to prepare for their futures. Hers and little Cobina's, without Bill. Even the well-off, and especially the formerly well-off, could feel like one is cursed. If only the masses weren't worse off. Another day and another chance at glory will come again. Section 2, History and Historiography. This tale gets more and more convoluted the more I dig. So many things coming to light that I feel compelled to share, and hence some very overstuffed episodes. When I started this project, I wanted to make sure I linked things together to make it more alive and dynamic. The catching and tracking down names has been the most consistent way I have been keeping this up, making sure that there are ties that connect everyone, and to point out any intersection. And now this is happening in new ways. After learning about the Leviathan in operation via the newspapers, I reconsulted Cobina Wright's autobiography, I Never Grew Up, for the relevant passage. Long ago, I incorporated Cobina into the tale because she is periphery to Doris Duke, and Cobina's own tale of poor, rise to rich, then poor again was a great contrast to these tales of wealthy heirs and heiresses, especially as she married into wealth. When I previously reviewed her life, I focused on Cobina's connections to both Doris Duke and Jimmy Cromwell, her husband William May Wright's downfall, the struggles including the Waldorf, and her life thereafter. A quick and concise overview, enough to pitch the concept of her in a television series. I can't recall that I ever read or looked at the passage regarding the Leviathan or her illness. Cobina's connections to anyone and everyone make her endlessly fascinating. Now we have Elizabeth Arden and Mr. Dimples, Al Capone's mysterious partner, crossing into the tale. And in reviewing those passages, I found even more information that will be used towards the end of this year in a Metropolitan Opera episode. Cobina's recollections are often rose-colored, quite nostalgic, and rather fuzzy on certain details. Cobina's book states the Leviathan was scrapped shortly after her venture falls through, but the actual facts are different. It is docked for non-use in June 1933 in Hoboken, New Jersey, and its function abolished on August 10, 1933. However, its retirement, like the earlier Waldorf Astoria Hotel's demolition, revives immediate interest in the ship and refurbishing it to sail again on June 9, 1934. Leviathan is retired again in 1936, only to be resold in 1937 and resails in 1938. In 1946, after World War II, the Leviathan is then scrapped. Now, there are other mentions that cause my incessant need to figure out what might be the connection, such as Cobina's reference to a fight at Madison Square Garden could be any of several fights within 2 to 3 month period when these events might have happened. At first, I thought and hoped it could be the Max Baer and German Max Schmeling fight, as that was a highly anticipated event during the time, but that happens at Yankee Stadium. Most likely, it would have been the Primo Carnera versus Jack Sharkey heavyweight title fight on June 29, 1933, which Primo wins after 6 rounds. Max Baer will defeat Primo in the next year, 1934, for that year's heavyweight boxing title. Now, a bigger mystery that I cannot resolve is Mr. Dimples. If I was to guess, I would want to say possibly Murray Humphreys, nicknames the Camel for his camel hair coats, and the Hump a diminutive of his name. Humphreys was a new breed of gangster, half thug and half businessman. Charming, but cold-blooded and smart. In 1933, he too is sentenced for tax evasion and has been recently tied to a fake kidnapping scheme of a British con artist, John Factor, who also was evading trouble with the law. Capone quite liked that Humphreys preferred to deal with matters in cash rather than killing, but would resort to the latter only if absolutely necessary. Even the FBI pursuing Humphreys seemed to be charmed by this polite gangster who never swore and would often start his tapped phone conversations by saying, "Good morning, gentlemen, and anyone listening. This is the 9 o'clock meeting of the Chicago underworld." However, a couple of facts from Cobina's fuzzy recollection do not match Humphrey's history. Both number of children in 1933 and sentence and jail time, which is told to her by someone else. Her autobiography says 25 years, which seems kind of long, especially because even Capone's sentence was only 11 years. And well, the location of their meeting is in New York and not Chicago. So who knows who Mr. Dimples really is? By the way, Capone too appears in the press. First as a fairly decent third baseman, but not a good hitter for his prison's baseball team. And second, Capone breaks up a potential prison riot by offering and paying $100, roughly $2,415 in 2024, to the man who wins the boxing fight to settle the dispute. Other more serious international notes? Mahatma Gandhi is on a hunger strike, and Jewish writers are beginning to be sent to concentration camps. Ah, yes, there is always something new to learn from this not-so-distant, but somewhat forgotten past. Section 3, Contemporary and Personal Relevance. The struggles of finding your way in life are something we all can relate to. But one of the strange ironies is that success does not guarantee a life away from future struggles and problems. In fact, success and wealth can breed other complications. There have been a few TV series retelling the rise of certain fashion designers, Hulu's Becoming Karl Lagerfeld, Netflix's Halston, and Apple TV's The New Look, which focuses on the rise of Christian Dior. They all feature the main designer, along with their contemporaries Coco Chanel, Yves St. Laurent, Pierre Balmain, Thierry Mugler, Cristobal Balenciaga, and others. In fact, Lagerfeld got an early start working for Jean Patou, the designer of Barbara Hutton's wedding dress. These series cover the rivalries and complicated friendships amongst them all, the difficult personal relationships and the inherent weaknesses that might cause their downfall or prevent them from truly enjoying the life they created. The battles in business to both rise to the top and then to stay there. The self-doubt, the self-loathing, the perpetual rejection, the contrast of the hedonistic fantasy with the driven, though chaotic life often involved in artistic and creative endeavors, as well as the predatory and prey dynamics from all angles. It is far too easy to envy one particular aspect of another's life while dismissing the very painful other reality that the envy may also be suffering. Unlike constructed and more simplistic fictional stories, a person often might be struggling with multiple issues at once, compounding and complicating matters further. Those stories above and within this podcast cover several setbacks, both external and internal. a reminder that nothing guarantees anything will ever be truly simple. Chris Williamson's modern podcast and his Instagram post likes to repeat this quote by British, Irish, and once canceled comedian Jimmy Carr. Everyone is jealous of what you got. Nobody is jealous of how you got it. Our heirs and heiresses live the lives many envy from afar, but up close, far more troubles block their way to happiness. Guess what is coming back? My 2 webinars on the original first 2 Waldorf Astoria hotels, returning Part 1 on Friday, November 1st, 2024, and Part 2 on Friday, November 8th, 2024, both at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and 2:30 p.m. Pacific, $12 each, live with access 1 week afterwards. Available via New York Adventure Club. Links will be posted via the news and events section at As the Money Burns and all social media. And also check out www.nyadventureclub.com. Links available in the notes and transcripts sections. If you enjoy As the Money Burns, then please share, like, and subscribe. Next, when we return to As the Money Burns, a big birthday arrives with a large inheritance and thus the ability to finally control one's life. Or so it seems. Until then. As the Money Burns is an original podcast written, produced, and voiced by Nikki Woodard based on historical research. Archival music has been provided by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Check out their website at www.pastperfect.com. Please come visit us at As the Money Burns via GoodPods X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, now Mado, or Instagram. Transcripts, timeline, episode guide, and character bios are available at asthemoneyburns.com.